I am now pleased to welcome Ms. Raj Samani, Chief Scientist at McAfee, who will introduce us to how European regulations respond to global threats. As private sector is necessary part of the cybersecurity equation, which is always a sum of and multiplier of efforts and potential of many actors. Mr. Samani, we are looking forward to hearing your account.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's been a remarkable 12 months as I sit and talk about the growth of the challenges that we've faced from cybersecurity major incidents. To be fair, I think these last 12 months have been unprecedented. We started about a year ago, I think, with the growth of COVID-related attacks. We very quickly realized that criminals, they don't necessarily care about a pandemic. They don't care about our health or our well-being. They just simply want to get paid. And, we were quickly followed into the growth of misinformation, not only with regards to COVID, but also with regards to major democratic events, such as even the presidential election. When we thought actually we were going to have a break, all of a sudden we saw the SolarWinds attacks targeting major critical infrastructure providers across Europe, but also the United States and across the globe. And then Microsoft Exchange, and just recently the DanShun attacks targeting European 5G telecommunications providers. It's been exhausting. But beyond the volume of attacks, I think the one thing that we often fail to do, because we're just so quick going from one major crisis to another major crisis, is we're not really stopping to ask ourselves the question, what does this actually all mean? I mean, let's start at the beginning. With regards to the COVID-related attacks, there was money that was intended for PPE for frontline workers being stolen, and let's call it what it is, actually being stolen and taken from by fraudsters. They necessarily didn't care in any way, shape, or form. And I remember in 2016, we had ransomware attackers saying that attacking hospitals may be unethical. Well, let's be blunt, that's not stopped them in any way, shape, or form. And then we moved towards the misinformation-related attacks. And of course, if you remember just a few years back when the European parliamentary elections, the EU parliamentary elections were up, we actually saw targeted campaigns against that. And the sad reality was these types of attacks wasn't just attacking our democracy, but they were attacking our very foundation of keeping ourselves safe. There were misinformation campaigns associated and related to the correlation between 5G and coronavirus. And of course, regardless of any evidence, there are many people that believe that. And today we're being faced with those individuals that are claiming that the vaccine is not safe, all through the social media troll bots from nation states, really designed to try to compromise the stability of our society. And I have to stress, it is working as well. There are many people out there that are believing some of these assertions about the lack of safety associated with vaccines. And then, of course, we talk about the SolarWinds attacks. And the SolarWinds attacks, to me, suggest or point to a level of targeted nature of an attack where we've really not seen that scale or the complexity ever really before. And, many people will say, we recognize that there have been supply chain attacks in the past, but we're dealing with a critical infrastructure provider. an organization that is supplying to major bodies all across the globe. And just to be clear, this was not just directed at the United States or federal organizations in the US. There are victims all across the globe in addition to Europe. By compromising SolarWinds, impacting their update process, they were able to install the first stage of malware to between 19 to 33,000 organizations across the globe. Now, it was asked of me, actually as early as just as recently as this morning, well, SolarWinds was a US issue. And I just want you to remember this impacted at least the first stage was on approximately up to 33,000 systems across the globe. We then move over towards their secondary payload, and their secondary payload actually was a lot more targeted. And so they knew who they were going to go after. But in order to go and compromise these organizations, they compromised SolarWinds first. And just before you've even got your breath back, we deal with the March the 2nd announcement from Microsoft about the Hafnium Group. And now we see criminals all across the globe with exploit code compromising Microsoft Exchange servers, in addition to those that are probably already compromised, but just don't even know about it. And, you know, I heard the presentations this morning talking about our digital Europe, or, you know, the growth of 5G and how that's going to be a foundation for Europe. And yet, just yesterday, our own research uncovered Operation DanShun. Operation DanShun is an active campaign as we speak. It is a campaign targeting telecommunications providers all across the globe, United States, Europe, India, Vietnam, Asia, other major countries across the globe. And it is a nation state backed attack for the fundamental purpose of gathering information related to the 5G deployments across countries that have or have been considering the banning of technology from certain providers. That's the reality of the environment that we live in, is this relentless nature of not just the noise of not just the noise of malware. In other words, not just crypto mining or coin jacking types of attacks, things that we expect anyway, but major nation states increasing their capabilities, targeting individuals in these organizations. And in DanShun's case, for example, targeting senior executives at telecommunications providers for the sole purpose of trying to trick them into going for a job. Of course, they were offered a fake Huawei job site and that then downloaded malware onto their system. But what we suspect and what we believe was happening here was this was an espionage-related campaign for the sole purposes of gathering information related to the 5G deployment, in this particular case in Europe. So my question really that I would kind of throw back to earlier speakers, and actually really to all of us, is we are within Europe, we are investing in technologies and platforms such as 5G. But there are adversaries watching every move that we make. We are making decisions about the vaccines and trying to encourage individuals to take vaccines so we can get back to normality. And yet there are adversaries out there intentionally, and I have to stress intentionally, spreading and seeding doubt upon our citizens, which is and will impact the rollout of vaccines and slow down our ability, or maybe even considerably impact our ability to go back to some degree of normality. With SolarWinds, we've got cases whereby, I mean, we don't even know the full story to date, but the impact of that, I feel, won't be felt maybe for a number of years. And so the challenge that I think we face as a society is, and I have to stress, is cybersecurity is seen as a cyber issue. Cybersecurity is something that we talk about related to malware, we talk about related to attacks. And yet, just the last 12 months of major campaigns that we've witnessed, and by the way, we haven't even discussed ransomware, the impact of that is going to be much more dramatic than, say, for example, a computer system that might be impacted. We're talking about the growth of our economies. We're talking about the health of our citizens. We're talking about money going into frontline services. And each and every single step of the way, there are adversaries out there looking to thwart us. And the challenge that I think we face as an industry, and not as an industry, I would say as a society, is we still look at this as an IT related issue. We still look at this as a cyber related issue. And there has to be a better approach to how we do. Now, I will stress that it is really encouraging to see, within Europe, the advent of the NIS2 directive. I think that sends a particularly strong message. But the regulatory framework has to be backed with actionable intelligence and direct actions against those that would seek to do harm against us. And that doesn't necessarily mean hacking back, but I have to stress it does mean understanding and developing better response mechanisms between the public and private sector to collaborate and work together to hold those accountable. It involves collaboration with global law enforcement to bring those individuals that are targeting our hospitals, for example, with ransomware, or targeting our executives with fake orders to buy equipment that will never be delivered. We need to hold them accountable. And that's of paramount importance, because just this week we've seen interviews from ransomware operators, actual millionaires, claiming that they have no fear in any way, shape, or form about law enforcement catching up with them. But in addition to the regulatory framework, and I think in addition to public and private sector working to put in the mechanisms required in order to be able to respond, in order to be able to hold those accountable, our biggest challenge really begins with how can we start to develop and articulate the message so our citizens understand the difference between an actual Tom Cruise video and a deepfake Tom Cruise video. And of course, that's tongue-in-cheek, because we all know that the Tom Cruise videos of deepfakes are kind of doing the internet. But the shape of things to come is misinformation will not be a tweet in the future, will not be a Facebook posting. It will become a video from one of our leaders. It will come from a message from people in power claiming certain things that absolutely aren't true. And we have to accept the fact that if we don't get better, the reality is the bad guys we know are improving. We know that they are investing, and that becomes a challenge for all of us. And so in this world of attacks coming from all angles, we need to, first of all, respond appropriately. We need the opportunity to be able to carry out the necessary investigations. But fundamentally, for a safer society, we need to start to develop a mechanism so that we can articulate the importance of cybersecurity, or really the importance of safety in the digital world is not just simply related to installing a tool or installing a piece of software. Actually, it involves communication. It requires active participation from our citizens. It requires our public bodies to be strengthened and enhanced and digitally capable. The sad reality is that we live in a world today where citizens that are victims of crime, if they're done on a computer, invariably don't report it. If they want to report it, in many cases, they don't know where to go. Even when they do go and report it, maybe to local law enforcement, there very rarely is any follow-up, just due to the very nature, or perhaps because of the lack of understanding of where to go. This can't continue. And I for one, and we for one here within McAfee, but also as co-founders of No More Ransom, are absolutely committed to working with our partners, both not only in the public sector in Europe, but also globally, as well as within private industry with bodies such as the Cyber Threat Alliance, to develop a safer society. The sad reality is that today digital attacks don't just impact the online world, they even impact the offline world. We've all witnessed that and seen that over the last 12 months, but we have to take lessons to learn from that. With that, thank you all so much for your time.